joining us this evening for tonight's special event with critically acclaimed author Monica Holloway. I'm Lauren, Special Events Coordinator here at the SAG Foundation, and I am delighted to bring everyone here in the audience here in Los Angeles, as well as all our online guests tuning in to the live stream broadcast. We encourage our online guests to interact with us throughout the evening by sending us questions. You can do so by emailing us at livestream@sagfoundation.org, or even better, you can tweet us. You can send your tweets to @SAG_live or #SAGF. Be sure to include your city and or state so we can give you a shout out. I have to give a special thanks to Seth Caskey, who's behind the scenes making the live stream possible for you tonight. Without him, we are lost. And now I am happy to introduce to you our moderator for the evening, Marcia Smith.
I'm just going to ask Monica to come up and sit here for a moment. I wanted to share with you how this evening came about, and maybe give those of us who are not here in the room a little bit more understanding of why I think this is so important that we talk to Monica. A few months ago, I was invited to go to an event at my grandchildren's school, and they were raising money for their library, and I was told that there was going to be an author who wrote a book about a child and a dog, and since I love children and dogs, I said, okay. But it was the day before the event that I finally got the book, Cowboy and Wills. And I literally read it in one sitting, sobbing my eyes out. Thank you. Not getting much sleep that night because the book had a profound influence on me. I kind of did this backwards. I read Cowboy and Wills first, and then I read Driving with Dead People. And listening to Monica that day at the school was an amazing experience. I think most of us in our families have at least some member of the family who has had a child or knows a child who has special needs. In my family, it's a young cousin who had autism, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, and the amazing success that he has had. And so everything Monica said particularly resonated with me. But most of all, it was the fact that Monica is an actress. And I thought, well, given what she's had to face in her life and how she has made such a success of who she is and who her family is, that I thought this was something to share with the Screen Actors Guild audience. Because so many times, in the 16 years that I was executive director of the foundation, what I found is that actors lose a sense of hope. After a while, the rejection and the feeling of being a victim overcomes them, and they give up. Monica and her family never gave up. And you know, we hear the old, very tried but true statement: if you're given a lemon, you know, you have a choice. Make lemonade. This lady makes lemonade out of everything. And I wanted her to share her story and maybe do this a little bit differently than some of the other talks that she has done. In that, first, I want to talk to her a little bit about her acting career. And then we're going to...
That'll be brief. That'll be great.
As with most of us. Yeah, mine ended up that way too.
Okay, now we're going to do a duet later.
So let's talk a little bit about how you became an actress and what kind of acting you did, and how that then launched your writing skills.
When I was younger, I was always looking for a way to sort of step outside of my family, sort of figure out sort of who I was outside of what was going on in my childhood home. I grew up in a violent home. There was neglect in my house. There were also good times in my house. It was a very confusing time and place. And when I got into 5th grade, I found out about a drama workshop and I went, and luckily, she was, I see some friends back there, she kind of plucked me out and said to me, at the time I had headgear and, you know, perm, and I'd been laying out too much, and I looked nothing like you think an actor should look, but luckily, I didn't pick up the mic. I have one on here, but I think my Spanx back here did something to it. Quite frankly, I think that's what happened. I'm going to blame it on the Spanx. Thank you, Oprah, for telling me to buy them. I don't know if you heard any of that. But anyway, I'm talking about Marcia Blair. And Marcia actually passed away this year. And it was unexpected. And it was the first time in about 20-some years that I have ever been back home. But I went back home for her memorial service because, and only she could have brought me back there. So from 5th grade on through high school, I worked with Marcia and a company of actors in my hometown in the Midwest. And the one piece of advice that she gave me, she said, honey, everybody can be pretty. Not everybody, but a lot of people can be pretty. It's effortless to be pretty for some people, not me. But it's really hard to be funny. And lucky for you, you're funny. So go to it, kid. And that's how I started acting. And luckily, I could sing a little. And so that helped me too.
But don't you think that a lot of children who come from the kind of background you came from go into acting as an escape because you then become a different person? You're not...
Absolutely. I rejected that for a long time. I would say, oh, that's such a pattern. That's not me, of
Lie
course.
down with the couch and talk about it.
Well, I really think through the years, you know, I realized the reason I kind of stopped acting was I didn't really need it anymore. And I was much more interested in writing and figuring out my own story and my own history and my family. I have a family member in the front row. And that became more important to me than putting on a wig or having on boots, and not that I don't still do that in the privacy of my own home, but
And we know what we call that.
yeah. I don't know, are women cross-dressers? Okay, well, worrisome. We call it worrisome. Yeah, I really didn't need what I had gotten from the theater before, and the cost of it, as you said about some of the SAG members that can lose hope, is that the lifestyle itself got to be difficult for me. So when I got pregnant, actually right before I got pregnant, I worked for Unsolved Mysteries. I know. I do not expect a reaction. I understand. My husband was starting his writing career. He's a television writer, writer for The Simpsons. And as he was starting his writing career, I said, let me pay the rent this time, and you go do your writing career. And I was the executive assistant, the assistant for the executive producers on Unsolved Mysteries, and I had so much fun. And they kept saying, "You're not going to want to act, are you? You're not going to want to act, are you?" And I kept saying, "No, no, I just want to make money and have a baby." And it turned out that people would miss their, you know, the scenes that they were supposed to do. And guess who got the call to go be in a dirty, filthy bathrobe and come out of a trailer with a gun yelling at her husband? Me. So I had to do these little segments where I wasn't allowed to talk because, you know, they would have paid me. Yes, sure it was. Positive it was. Yeah, so I did a little acting anyway on their own behalf, and I just got really huge and I had wills. And then when I actually had wills, I did need to stop anything.
How did you know you could write?
I did not know I could write. I did not know I could write. I had this great friend, Beth Schachter. I have this great friend, Beth Schachter. And hello, Beth, in New York. And she's watching. And she kept saying to me, we went to graduate school together, UCSD, in the acting program. And she was the director. And she would always say to me, you need to write your stories down. We need to do a one-woman show. I was like, yeah, nobody's going to be interested in my stories. So what she did was, we moved to New York together. We were in just like everybody, in an apartment the size of an elevator, and shaved our legs in one sink. And the toilet was literally in a closet with hangers over my head. You can picture it. That's fine with me. So she followed me around with a tape recorder. And so whenever we had a party and I was talking to somebody telling a story, she was getting it on tape, and then she wrote it all out, gave it to me, edit this. There's your one-woman show. We're going to do it at Alice's 4th floor, which doesn't exist anymore on 42nd Street.
We did a big opening there. It was fun and great. And then I ended up doing it at New York Theater Workshop. And that's the first writing that I did, if you want to call that writing. But that's when I really fell in love with the written word for myself and thinking that, wow, maybe I can do this. So then when I had Wills, I started thinking more and more about what can I do with my time. I can't go audition. I didn't look like somebody that should be out auditioning. My face was like this big. I got really fat when I was pregnant. So I started writing and taking a lot of writing classes and taking Wills with me and at UCLA. And I ended up getting published at 42. So that's how it happened.
That's amazing. You said that you were funny. Now, given the fact that
I said that, but
rumor has it.
disagrees that I said that. I was then.
given the way you were raised and given what you went through, where did the humor come from?
I was lucky to be funny, and it's hard to, it's hard for people to understand that my father, who was a very, violent man, and I'm just going to say violent and leave it at that, scary, was hilarious. He was not funny at my house, but he was funny out in the community, and people would say, oh, you're so-and-so's daughter. I'm not going to get into names right now because I had to change them all for Driving with Dead People, and I'm not going to change them up here. He's hilarious. And I did not know what they were talking about. And then I went to a barbecue. Well, me and all my siblings went to a barbecue with my mother with him, and he jumps out of the station wagon and runs down to the steak pit to flip steaks, and all of a sudden there's laughter, and everyone's like, he's so funny. And I sat and watched him as somebody I had never seen before in my life. And it was really chilling because I realized I got that from him. It's pretty weird.
But not the violence, thank goodness.
I worried, you worry, like where are the cracks? Where is there something in me that could be violent? I lived a lot of years in rage, like road rage. It was mostly at people I didn't know, which is terrible. And some at people I did know. And some of it was appropriate. And some of it wasn't. And I did start therapy when I got married because I didn't want to bring my background into my marriage, and I wanted the violence to stop with me. And I knew that I wasn't going to be good at communicating openly with my husband because I hadn't had that in my life. I hadn't watched that with my own parents. And so I got into therapy, and she mostly commented on how rageable I was. And I was thinking of myself as funny and like rowdy and sort of, and I realized, it was fueled a lot by rage. And the best thing that ever happened to me was I laid down the rage. And it changed my life. It changed everything. And it's no kidding. People say, well, if you can forgive, okay, fine, well, forgive if you want to. Go ahead, enjoy yourself. I forgive some, and some things I don't forgive. Quite frankly, there are some things that are unforgivable. But I will say this, it stops with me. And when I had my son, I remember daydreaming really, because I was awake, that what if that streak is in me and I just don't know it? And what if I have Wills and I become him? What if he looks like my father or my father's side of the family? There was a lot going on about that. So I had to go to a lot of therapy. I'm glad I did.
Before we get into Cowboy and Wills, let's just talk very briefly about Driving with Dead People, so that people who've not read the book can better understand where did the title come from.
I drove a hearse in high school. And so,
Doesn't everyone?
Did you do that as well? All actors do that.
In New York City, we didn't have hearses.
Yeah, I'm all tied up here. Yeah, actors drive hearses. Yeah, that's the truth. But I had this sense, I really had a sense early on in my life, probably because, and there have been many people that have been told this, but I was an accident. My mother had 3 kids. She didn't want a 4th child. My sister and I are 18 months apart, my middle sister and I was told that I was unexpected and called baby for the first 2 years of my life. because I had no identity. And she was so angry when she found out she was pregnant and sad that she went down to the post office and realized that she had to pull out maternity clothes, and she felt sick to her stomach. So that's how I came into the world. I really wasn't, they weren't excited, I wasn't wanted. And on some level, on a big level, I really got that. I'm not supposed to be here. And so I think I was funny or loud. Let's call it loud. I was like, I'm over here, I'm over here, I'm over here. Because I didn't think I belonged at the table. And I didn't think I deserved the food. But I wasn't the only one that thought that. My siblings, they felt like they didn't deserve the food that was given. There was just the whole atmosphere of the house. But I think for me, what happened was when I was 8, a little girl was killed on her bicycle. And my father was reading the newspaper, and on the front page of the paper is this little girl's picture. And I say, what happened to her? He said, she's dead. And I said, what happened? How did she die? And he didn't say anything else. And my dad chased Gore. He had his Kodak camera riding shotgun in his pickup at all times, and if there's an accident, he would stop and film the accident. So our home movies are basically like hunting for Easter eggs, my brother's home run for baseball, a cow smashed against a Plymouth, somebody threw a windshield and the blood dripping, and then somebody's, I don't know, birthday party, not mine, but so home movies were really interesting. And I think because of all the violence and the movies that I saw early on, I didn't want to be dead, but I didn't want to be where I was. But I couldn't understand that because I was so young. So I focused on this little girl who had died, who looked just like me. Somebody pointed out that her bangs are just like my bangs now. They were saying, because my bangs were just sort of chopped, and they said, hey, are you still trying to get back to that? And I said, no, that's over. I had some therapy about that. But, and I obsessed about her, and I got my grandmother to take me to this little girl's funeral at 8 years old. And when I got in there, I saw, first of all, I wore something really frilly, and I really got into a fantasy that I was her, or she was me, and that I was somehow, I didn't know her. I had no relationship to her. And she was in a baseball uniform in her coffin. And it occurred to me, we weren't the same. And she did not look very good, as you can imagine. And I realized I didn't want that. I didn't want my father. There was a lot of abuse going on. It was definitely physical abuse and verbal and emotional. It was humiliating, a lot of shame. But I didn't want to be dead. So it's almost like I could live my life, like thank this girl for being the dead girl, so I could be the live one. And from then on, I befriended the daughter of the mortician, the local mortician, so I could learn all about death. And she's lovely. We became really best of friends, to the point where we ended up driving the hearse all the way, to Columbus to get the bodies that would fly in from out of town and driving back to the mortuary, and smoking Virginia Slims and drinking Pepsi and taking them through the Hardee's drive-thru and doing the old give us one for the guy in the back. And she's like, yeah. It's not funny after the third time, I guess.
Was your grandmother your safety net?
My granda is the reason I am sitting here. I think she's the reason.
That comes through in the book.
Yeah. But the first, I hate to go on about therapy, but you know what? It works, and I didn't believe that it would. So I won't go on and on about it, but I will tell you this. The first therapist I saw said to me, hey, you were loved. Somebody loved you, or you wouldn't be here. I was so shocked by that. Because, hey, I love you. Oh, I love you. Oh, give me a hug. I love you, but I mean loved. Somebody wanted you here. And that was my granddad. And I'm an awful lot like her, too. And so it was good for me to have her in my life. She had a double wide trailer and lived right around the block from us. And I was always eating at her house, and she was wild. She would drive us to church, and there's an S curve near my hometown, and she would put her hands behind her back and just make that S curve straight, just straight through the S curve, and it scared me to death, but I loved it. And of course, none of us wore seatbelts then, so my feet were on the dashboard. And she was up for anything. She was really funny, but she also touched us a lot. She hugged us a lot, things that our parents didn't do. She rubbed lotion on our backs. When we were sick, she was there with food and soup and anything that she could do to help. The problem was that she was a big, big fan of my mother's. And my mother and I had a really difficult relationship. And that was difficult for my grandmother and I. We didn't deal with it together much. We didn't talk about it much because we knew better. So she loved my mother one way and she loved me another.
Did she live long enough to see your success?
She knew I was a success as a person. She saw me get married. So that's good and surprising to her. I married someone under 70 and that was surprising to her. And somebody stable, and that was really surprising to her. And somebody she really liked. And she got to hold Wills. But by then she was really starting to have a lot of dementia and she wasn't quite sure who he was. But I have a movie of her holding him on her lap and just laughing and laughing and laughing. So that means a lot to me. And I will say, by the grace of God, the universe, whatever anybody believes happens after, I got to be alone with her when she died. It was just the two of us. And as hard as it was to let her go, it was such a huge gift. Because then I knew, the mortician who came and got her, and we wrapped her together. My sister, who's sitting in the front row, was with me, and we wrapped her together in the blanket and got her ready, and we wheeled her out to the hearse together as family. So we really, I felt like we said our goodbye. She was there at my birth, and I was there at her death.
When all of this was going on as you were growing up, were you writing in a diary? Were you keeping notes? Because in the book, your remembrance of detail is amazing. I mean, you remember what you were wearing.
Yes, I remember, but no, I didn't write anything. I ran.
So you had no escape. I mean, you didn't.
No.
You didn't talk to anyone. You didn't write it down. You didn't share it with the school counselor. You just kept it inside.
Exactly.
Well, what about with
all
your
did.
sister? Did the two of you communicate?
No, it was too frightening. We didn't talk about it. My oldest sister, her name, we call her Joanne in the book. She's sitting here in the front row. Saved my life. And I'll just say that it's true. And we protected each other growing up. And certainly by the time she got to high school, I just looked up to her, and she would call me from college to make sure I was eating, did I have enough gas money, and come up and get me. She was at IU having a great time. Yeah, she would come get little old sophomore me, I was a goon basically, and take me down with her for a weekend. And but we didn't say why or what, but we knew. We just knew.
Do you think that's usual in families where there is abuse, that the siblings don't communicate with each other, that they don't share it, but it's kept in your heart individually? Or
I think it depends on the family, and I think it depends on the type of abuse. I mean, what we went through, and we'll just say it, is sexual abuse with my father. There were 3 of us girls. And because the way that happened, the way the abuse happened, was very private and individual per daughter. So none of us really understood at the time, we were very young, that what was happening to me was happening to you, was happening to you. So we were terrified, absolutely terrified.
And in so many of these cases, the mother does know but is afraid to face it.
Yeah.
And then that changes your relationship with your mother.
Yes, it does. And yeah, she's a toughie, because I mean, one thing that's really hard, and it's true of Driving with Dead People, is that my father's very consistent to me. He's somebody you'll know who you're getting. If you, God forbid, run into the man, stay out of the Midwest. But my mother, to me, is ever changing, and I never knew who she was going to be. All I knew is that she was not going to be there for me, And when this came out, when it finally sort of, I mean, the abuse finally came out with my sister, who couldn't hold it in anymore, had huge bouts of depression, and we finally